Professor Jake Martinez walked into his classroom at the Galactic University. The room looked strange to anyone from Earth. Students sat in pods filled with different gases. Some floated in thick liquid. Others stood on platforms that spun slowly. Each alien species needed different things to stay alive during class. Jake had been teaching here for 3 years now. He still found it amazing that creatures from 12 different worlds could learn together in one room. Today he would talk about how scientists classify planets. It seemed like a simple topic, but Jake knew his students might have questions. The Vortex student named Zixtal looked like a walking crystal. Light passed through her clear body and made rainbow patterns on the walls. She raised one of her long arms that bent like rubber. Professor Martinez, we want to ask you something about your home world. Jake stopped writing on the board. He turned to face the class. What would you like to know about Earth? A student from the Flixian species moved his tentacles nervously. Flixians looked like giant squids, but with more arms and bigger brains. This one was called Morgan. We have been reading about planetary classifications. Earth is listed as a Class 12 death world. We do not understand how humans survived there. The classroom became quiet. Jake could hear the different sounds his students made when they breathed. The Aryan students dimmed their glowing bodies. Aryans lived in gas clouds and their skin gave off light like fireflies. The Catherian student named Drakmor made a low rumble. His thick shell covered his body like armor. Even the small Zephyrian students stopped their chirping. Jake smiled. He had expected this question to come up someday. What makes you think Earth is so dangerous? Zixtal's crystal body made a ringing sound when she moved. The gravity on your world is very strong. Most creatures would be crushed flat. The air pressure is high. Your sun gives off harmful radiation. The weather changes in violent ways. Your planet has earthquakes that split the ground open, added Yila, a Zephyrian who looked like a small bird with bright feathers. Storms with winds that can destroy buildings. Water that falls from the sky so hard it can hurt you. Morgan waved his tentacles as he spoke. We read about volcanoes that spit liquid rock, fires that burn entire forests, ice that covers the land for months. How did your species live through all of this? Jake walked to his desk and picked up a small device. He pressed a button and images appeared in the air above the students. The first image showed a peaceful meadow with green grass and colorful flowers. Butterflies flew from plant to plant. A gentle wind moved the grass. This is from Earth, Jake said. What do you think of this place? The students looked at each other. Some made sounds that meant they were confused. It looks safe, said Yila. The colors are pretty. Those flying creatures seem harmless. Is this a protected area where humans go to hide from the dangerous parts? Jake shook his head. This is actually one of our more dangerous places. The classroom became so quiet that Jake could hear the machines that kept each species alive humming in the background. I do not understand, said Drakmor. His deep voice made the floor shake a little. What danger could there be in such a place? Jake pointed to the flowers in the image. Many of these plants make poison. The poison is so strong it could kill most of you in minutes. Those butterflies you think look harmless? They eat the poisonous plants. The poison builds up in their bodies. Any creature that tries to eat them will die. He zoomed in on a simple white flower with yellow center. This is called a daisy. Humans think it is pretty and harmless, but it makes chemicals that would cause your organs to stop working. We use similar chemicals as medicine, but only in very small amounts. The air in this meadow carries tiny pieces of plants called pollen, Jake continued. It also carries small living things too tiny to see. Some of these could make you very sick. Human bodies fight them off without us even knowing about it. Zixtal started to vibrate. When Vorthak became scared or worried, their crystal bodies shook and made musical sounds. But surely your people do not go to places like this. Actually, human children play in places like this every day, Jake said. They roll in the grass. They pick the flowers. They breathe the air and drink water from streams. They think it is fun. The Aryan students flickered so fast they looked like broken lights. "This cannot be true," one of them said. "No intelligent species would let their young ones go to such deadly places." Jake saved the image and put away his device. "I think I need to plan some special lessons for you. If you really want to understand why Earth is called a death world, I will show you. But I warn you, the truth might be harder to accept than you think." "We want to know," said Zixtal. Her crystal body had stopped shaking. "We are students of science. We can handle the truth." The other students made sounds of agreement. They clicked, hummed, whistled, and flashed their lights to show they wanted to learn. Jake looked at each of his students. They came from worlds where the biggest danger might be a storm that lasted a few hours. Some lived on planets where no creature ever hurt another. Others came from places where the most dangerous thing was getting lost in a fog. "Very well," Jake said. "Next week I will bring someone to help explain. Dr. Lisa Park just came back from Earth. She studies the creatures that live in Earth's oceans. She has pictures and videos that will help you understand what humans grew up with." The class ended. Jake watched his students leave. They moved in their different ways. Some floated, some crawled, some flew. All of them seemed excited about next week's lesson. Jake gathered his papers and headed for the door. He thought about his childhood home. He remembered playing in his backyard, swimming in the lake, climbing trees. Normal things that every human child did. Things that would probably give his alien students nightmares. He wondered if he should start with something easier. Maybe show them pictures of house cats first, or puppies. Then he remembered that Earth cats were perfect predators that killed billions of small creatures every year just for fun, and dogs were pack hunters that humans had turned into pets. Jake shook his head and smiled. Maybe he would start with something really harmless, like flowers. Then he remembered the lesson he had just taught about poisonous plants. There really was no easy way to explain Earth to creatures from peaceful worlds. Everything that seemed normal to humans would sound impossible to his students. But they wanted to learn, and Jake was a good teacher. He would find a way to help them understand. As he walked down the hallway, Jake passed other classrooms full of alien students learning about different subjects. He wondered how many of them knew that their human teachers came from the most dangerous world in known space. How many realized that every human they met was the product of millions of years of surviving on a planet that tried to kill everything living on it? Tomorrow, he would start planning lessons that would change how his students saw humans forever. He just hoped they could handle the truth about what Earth had made them become. 1 week later, Jake stood in front of his classroom again. This time he had brought help. Dr. Lisa Park carried a large bag full of equipment. She was a marine biologist who had spent the last 6 months studying ocean life on Earth. Lisa set up her equipment while the alien students watched. They seemed nervous after last week's lesson about the poisonous meadow. Jake noticed that more students had come to class today. Word had spread through the university about the human professor's strange lessons. "Good morning, everyone," Lisa said. "Professor Martinez asked me to show you some things from Earth's oceans. I thought we could start with something peaceful and beautiful." She turned on her machine and a large image appeared above the students. It showed clear blue water with sunlight streaming down from above. Small fish swam in groups, their silver sides catching the light. Coral formations covered the ocean floor in bright colors. Red, orange, yellow, and purple coral created what looked like an underwater garden. "Oh," said Yila, the small bird-like Zephyrian. "It is so pretty. This looks much safer than that meadow with poison flowers." The other students made agreeing sounds. Even Drakmor, the armored Catherian, seemed to relax. His thick shell stopped rattling. "This is called a coral reef," Lisa explained. "Many humans think it is one of the most beautiful places on Earth. People travel from far away just to swim here and look at the fish." "Your people swim in this water?" asked Morgan, the Flixian. His tentacles moved in slow waves. "They go into the same space as these creatures?" "Yes," Lisa said. "Swimming and diving are popular activities for humans. Many children learn to swim before they can walk properly." She zoomed in on the coral formations. "These coral structures are actually made by tiny animals. Millions of them worked together to build these reefs over hundreds of years. Six-Tall's crystal body made happy ringing sounds. The colors are wonderful. These tiny builders must be very peaceful creatures. Lisa paused. Jake saw her smile in a way that meant trouble was coming. Actually, coral animals are hunters. Each tiny coral has stinging cells that shoot out like tiny spears. They use these to catch and kill small creatures for food. The happy sounds from the student stopped. But they are so small, said an Aryan student whose name was Flux. How could such tiny things be dangerous? Lisa touched her control device and the image changed. Now they could see the coral much closer. Tiny arms reached out from each coral animal, and at the end of each arm were stinging cells that looked like miniature harpoons. Each coral animal can fire dozens of these poisoned darts, Lisa said. When a small fish or other creature touches the coral, the darts shoot out and inject poison. The poison paralyzes the victim so the coral can pull it in and eat it. She changed the image again. This time it showed a small fish swimming too close to the coral. In slow motion, they watched. The coral's stinging cells fire. The fish stopped moving and was pulled into the coral's mouth. The poison in these stings would cause most of you serious pain, Lisa continued. Some types of coral have poison strong enough to kill creatures much larger than the fish we just watched. But humans swim near these things? Asked Drakmore. How do they not get stung? Oh, they do get stung, Jake said. Most humans who swim in coral reefs get stung many times. They consider it normal. Lisa nodded. Human skin is thick enough that most coral stings only cause pain and swelling. Our bodies fight off the poison. Children learn to avoid touching certain types of coral, but they still play and swim in the same water. She changed the image to show more of the reef. Now let me show you some of the fish that live here. A large fish with stripes swam across the screen. It looked harmless and pretty. This is called an angelfish, Lisa said. Very popular with human divers because of its bright colors and patterns. It looks peaceful, said Yila. Angelfish are territorial, Lisa explained. They will attack anything that comes too close to their home area. They have sharp fins that can cut skin. The cuts can become infected with bacteria that live in the water. Another fish appeared on screen. This one was bright yellow with black stripes. This is a butterfly fish, Lisa continued. Also very pretty. Also very aggressive. It has spines along its back that inject poison when it feels threatened. More fish appeared in the images. Each one looked beautiful and harmless. Each one had ways to hurt or kill other creatures. This pufferfish can inflate its body and stick out poisoned spines. This parrotfish has a beak strong enough to bite through human fingers. This grouper fish can swallow creatures half its own size. The alien students were becoming more worried with each new fish. Their various sounds of distress filled the classroom. But surely the water itself is safe, asked Flux the Aryan. If humans must swim with all these dangerous creatures, at least the water cannot hurt them. Lisa and Jake looked at each other. Jake nodded for her to continue. The water in coral reefs contains millions of tiny living things, Lisa said. Bacteria, viruses, and parasites that cause diseases. Some of these can enter the human body through small cuts or through the mouth and nose. She showed a microscopic image of seawater. It was full of tiny moving creatures. Human immune systems fight these invaders constantly while we swim. Most of the time we win, but sometimes people get sick from waterborne illnesses. There are also larger parasites, Lisa continued. Creatures that try to burrow into skin or hide in body openings. Humans have learned to check for these after swimming. Six-Tall was vibrating again, making her crystal song of worry. How many humans die from swimming in these places? Very few, Lisa said. Human children start swimming in oceans when they are very young. Their bodies learn to handle all these dangers. What would kill most of you is just another day at the beach for a human family. She showed a new image. This one was a human family swimming and playing in the coral reef. Children dove down to look at the coral up close. Adults swam calmly among the fish. Everyone looked happy and relaxed. This family spent a whole week swimming in this reef, Lisa said. The parents taught their children which creatures to avoid touching. The children learned to swim through caves and around dangerous animals. They thought it was the best vacation ever. The youngest child in this picture is 5 years old, Jake added. She can hold her breath underwater for almost 2 minutes. She can swim faster than most of you can move on land, and she thinks swimming with poisonous creatures is fun. The classroom was full of worried sounds. Clicking, humming, rattling, and flickering filled the air. I think that is enough for today, Lisa said, turning off her equipment. Next week we can talk about some of the larger ocean creatures that humans swim with. Larger creatures? Squeaked Hila. You mean there are things more dangerous than what we just saw? Lisa packed up her gear. Well, we have not talked about sharks yet, or jellyfish, or octopuses, or sea snakes, or electric eels, or stingrays. Each name she mentioned made the students more upset. Professor Martinez, said Drakmore, are you telling us that human children play in water full of creatures that could kill them, and they think it is enjoyable? Jake nodded. That is exactly what I am telling you. And this is just the beginning. The ocean is actually one of the safer places on Earth. As the students left the classroom, they moved more slowly than usual. They huddled together in groups, talking in worried voices about what they had learned. Jake and Lisa watched them go. I think we broke their understanding of reality, Lisa said. They asked to learn the truth, Jake replied. Wait until they find out that humans keep some of these dangerous creatures as pets in glass tanks in their homes. Lisa laughed. Are you really going to tell them about pet sharks and poisonous fish? Eventually, Jake said. But first, I think we need to work up to it slowly. Maybe next week we will just talk about jellyfish. Just jellyfish? Lisa asked. You mean the ones that can kill a human in minutes with their poison? The ones that are invisible in the water? The ones that can be the size of dinner plates with tentacles longer than a human is tall? Jake smiled. Exactly. I want to ease them into the really dangerous stuff. Outside the classroom, Zixtal turned to her fellow students. I am beginning to think we should not have asked about Earth being a death world. It is too late now, said Drakmore. We must learn the truth, no matter how frightening it becomes. But deep inside his armored shell, Drakmore was starting to wonder if his species' definition of courage was the same as a human's. Jake had spent the week preparing for today's lesson. He knew his alien students were already worried after learning about coral reefs and poisonous fish. Today, he would show them something that would really test their understanding of humans. Dr. Alan Ross sat at the front of the classroom with Jake. Alan studied how humans lived throughout history. He had brought pictures and videos that would help explain human children to the alien students. Today we will talk about human development, Jake announced. Specifically, we will discuss what human children can do. The students seemed relieved. After 2 weeks of learning about deadly environments, talking about children sounded safe. Jake activated his display and showed a picture of a little girl playing in a backyard. She had brown hair and was wearing a red dress. She looked small and helpless to the alien eyes watching her. This is Casey Thompson, Jake said. She is 8 years old. By your standards, she is still a very young child who needs protection from adults. She looks so fragile, said Hila. Her skin appears thin. She has no natural armor or protective covering. How do human parents keep their children safe? That is an interesting question, Alan said. Let me tell you what Casey can do, and then you can decide if she needs protection. He stood up and walked to the display. Casey weighs 25 kilograms. She can lift objects that weigh 50 kilograms over her head. That is twice her own body weight. The students made surprised sounds. Her bones are denser and stronger than the titanium alloy used in spacecraft construction. Alan continued. Her muscles can generate explosive bursts of power that would damage equipment not designed to handle such force. Jake added more information. Casey can run for 2 hours without stopping. She can climb vertical surfaces using only her hands and feet. She can jump gaps wider than her own height. And she does all of this for fun. But she is so small, protested Morgan the Flixian. How can such a tiny creature be so strong? Human children are built for survival on Earth, Alan explained. Casey's body is designed to handle Earth's gravity, which would crush most of you. Her bones, muscles, and organs are all much stronger than they appear. Jake changed the picture to show Casey climbing a large tree. She was at least 4 meters off the ground, hanging from a branch with just her hands. Casey climbs trees like this every day after school, Jake said. If she falls, her bones are strong enough that she will probably not be seriously hurt. Her reflexes are fast enough that she will try to grab other branches on the way down. This is not possible, said Drakmore. No young creature should be able to survive such dangerous activities. Let me tell you about Casey's great-great-grandmother, Mary Thompson, Alan said. He showed a picture of an old woman from long ago. Mary lived 100 years ago when humans had less technology. The students leaned forward to listen. One winter night, Mary's husband was hurt in an accident, Alan continued. The nearest doctor lived 30 miles away. There were no vehicles to carry her there. The temperature was 40 degrees below freezing. Snow was falling so hard she could barely see. What did she do? Asked Zixtal. She walked, Alan said simply. 30 miles through a blizzard and temperatures that would freeze most life forms solid. She wore only cloth clothing and leather boots. It took her 8 hours. The classroom fell silent. When she reached the doctor, she had to walk back with him. Alan continued. Another 30 miles in the same deadly conditions. By the time they returned, Mary had walked 60 miles through weather that would kill most species in minutes. She lived through this? Asked Flux the Aryan. She lived to be 92 years old, Jake said. She had 12 children and 43 grandchildren. She considered the blizzard walk one of the less difficult things she had done in her life. Jake showed another picture. This one was of a modern human man working at a construction site. He was carrying steel beams that looked very heavy. This is Steve Morrison, Jake said. He works in construction. Every day he lifts materials weighing hundreds of kilograms. He works at heights that would terrify flying species. He operates machinery that generates enough power to destroy buildings. Is he a specially trained warrior? Asked Drakmore. No, Jake replied. He is a normal human with a normal job. His wife Carol works at a hospital where she handles chemicals that would be classified as dangerous weapons on most worlds. Their son Danny is Casey's age and plays a sport where children deliberately run into each other at high speed. Alan activated a video screen. This is Danny's football game from last weekend. The alien students watched in horror as human children, wearing padding and helmets, ran at each other and collided with tremendous force. The sound of the impacts made the Kitherians' armor rattle. They do this for entertainment? Whispered Yila. The children enjoy it, Jake said. Parents come to watch and cheer. It is considered a normal childhood activity. The video showed one boy getting hit so hard he fell to the ground. The alien students gasped, but the boy got up, shook his head, and kept playing. That child should be dead, said Morgan. The force of that collision would break most creatures apart. Human children are taught to handle impacts like this from a young age, Alan explained. Their bodies learn to absorb and distribute force. What looks like a deadly collision to you is just part of the game to them. Jake changed the display again. Now it showed statistics and numbers. The average human child can survive temperature changes from 40 degrees below freezing to 50 degrees above the boiling point of water, Jake read. They can function at altitudes where the air is too thin for most species to breathe. They can go without food for weeks and without water for days. Their immune systems fight off thousands of potentially deadly infections every day, Alan added. Diseases that would wipe out entire populations of other species are handled automatically by human bodies, without the human even knowing they were sick. Zixtal was vibrating so hard her crystal body sounded like wind chimes in a storm. You are saying that human children are stronger and more durable than our adult warriors? Casey is actually small for her age, Jake said with a smile that seemed different now. Less friendly. More like the expression a predator might make before attacking. Most 8-year-old humans are bigger and stronger than she is. What happens when they become adults? Asked Flux. Jake and Alan looked at each other. Jake nodded. Adult humans are much more capable than children, Alan said. They are stronger, faster, smarter, and have learned to use tools and weapons. An average adult human could probably defeat your strongest warriors without much difficulty. But humans seem so peaceful, protested Yila. They teach classes and study science. They do not act like dangerous creatures. That is because you have only met humans who choose to be peaceful, Jake explained. Humans are very good at controlling their abilities. We have learned to work together instead of fighting each other. But the strength is still there when we need it. Alan showed one final image. It was a picture of human soldiers from Earth's military. They carried weapons and equipment that looked far more advanced than anything the alien students had seen. These are humans who have chosen to be warriors, Alan said. They train every day to become even more dangerous than normal humans. They can march for days carrying heavy equipment. They can fight in any environment on Earth. They can survive injuries that would kill most creatures. And they are still just normal humans, Jake added. No genetic modifications, no cybernetic enhancements, just humans who have trained their natural abilities. The silence in the classroom was complete except for the various sounds of alien distress. Finally, Drakmore spoke. Professor Martinez, how many humans live on Earth? About 8 billion, Jake replied. 8 billion creatures like this? Drakmore's voice was barely a whisper. 8 billion creatures much more dangerous than Casey and her family, Jake corrected. Most adult humans are bigger, stronger, and more experienced than the children I showed you today. As the class ended, the alien students left very quietly. No one asked questions about next week's lesson. No one seemed eager to learn more about humans. Jake and Alan packed up their equipment. I think we scared them, Alan said. Good, Jake replied. They need to understand what they are dealing with. Humans have been controlling our strength around other species to avoid frightening them. But if they really want to know why Earth is a death world, they need to know what kind of creatures it produced. Outside the classroom, the alien students gathered in worried groups. I do not think we should continue these lessons, said Flux. I do not want to know what else humans can do. We must learn, said Zixtal, though her crystal body shook with fear. If we do not understand humans, how can we know if we are safe around them? Drakmore looked back at the classroom where Jake was still gathering his papers. I am beginning to think that question has a very simple answer. We are not safe around them. We never were. We just did not know it. Jake stood in the university's virtual reality chamber with his terrified students. After 3 weeks of learning about human capabilities, the alien students had become very quiet and nervous. Today, Jake planned to show them something that would make everything else seem simple. Today we will visit my hometown, Jake announced as he activated the chamber controls. I grew up in a place called Springfield. It is a very normal human community. Nothing special or dangerous about it. The chamber began to change around them. The walls disappeared and were replaced by a street lined with houses. Green grass covered the yards between buildings. Large trees provided shade over sidewalks. Everything looked peaceful and pleasant. Then the environmental sensors began feeding data to the alien students' life support systems. Zixtal immediately began making the crystal chiming sound of extreme distress. The gravity is crushing me. How can anything survive in such heavy conditions? The atmospheric pressure is enormous, gasped Yila, her feathers standing up in panic. It feels like being deep underwater. Morgan's tentacles writhed as his breathing apparatus worked harder. I can taste the oxygen in the air. It is burning my respiratory organs. How do you breathe this fire? Jake calmly adjusted the simulation to provide life support bubbles around each student. This is just normal Earth atmosphere and gravity. Nothing unusual at all. Dr. Beth Carter materialized in the simulation beside Jake. She was an expert on Earth's environment and had agreed to help with today's lesson. Jake grew up on this street, Beth said, pointing to a house with blue shutters and a white fence. As a child, he played outside in this exact environment every day. He breathed this air, walked in this gravity, and lived under that sun. She pointed up at the yellow sun shining down on them. Even filtered through the life support systems, the alien students could feel its intense heat and radiation. That star produces radiation that would sterilize most worlds, Beth continued. The energy levels would cook most life forms, but human children play outside under this sun for hours every day. Jake walked over to a large tree in his family's front yard. I used to climb this oak tree when I was Casey's age. I would go all the way to the top, at least 15 meters off the ground. The alien students looked up at the massive tree. Its trunk was wider than any of them could reach around. Its branches extended higher than some of their buildings back home. This tree is struck by lightning several times each year, Beth explained. Lightning on Earth carries enough electrical energy to power your spacecraft. But the tree survives these strikes. Humans plant these trees in their yards on purpose. The simulation shifted to show the same street during different seasons. Rain began to fall. But this was not the gentle moisture that fell on their home worlds. This was a torrential downpour that would flood most alien cities. Earth rain falls with enough force to erode rock, Beth said, raising her voice over the sound of water hitting the ground. The drops are large enough to injure small creatures, but human children run and play in rain like this. They think it is fun. Drakmore's armor was rattling so hard it sounded like a percussion instrument. How do they not drown? How do they not get beaten to death by the falling water? Human skin is tough enough to handle the impacts, Jake explained. Their bodies process the water efficiently. Getting soaked in rain is considered refreshing by most humans. The simulation changed again. Now snow was falling. The temperature dropped to levels that would kill most of the students in minutes even with their life support systems. This is winter in Springfield, Jake said. The temperature is 15 degrees below the freezing point of water. Human children build snow creatures and throw snowballs at each other for entertainment. They handle frozen water with their bare hands? Asked Flux. That should cause immediate tissue death. Human circulation systems adapt to cold temperatures, Beth explained. Their blood vessels constrict to preserve core body heat. Their bodies generate more internal heat through muscle activity. What feels deadly to you is just another season. To humans. Jake pointed to a house across the street. The Morrison family lives there. Steve Morrison works outside in weather like this every day. He operates heavy machinery in temperatures that would freeze most machinery solid. The simulation showed Steve Morrison clearing snow from his driveway using a machine that threw the frozen water several meters away. He wore only normal clothing and seemed comfortable in the deadly cold. His wife Carol walks to work in this weather, Beth added. She works at a hospital where she regularly handles substances that would be classified as chemical weapons by galactic standards. Medicines that would poison most species are routine tools for human medical workers. The environmental display changed to summer. The temperature rose to levels that would cook most of the alien students. Heat waves shimmered off the pavement. Summer temperatures in Springfield regularly exceed 40 degrees, Jake said. Humans consider this normal warm weather. Children play sports outside in this heat. The simulation showed human children running around a field, playing games, completely unaffected by heat that was making the alien students' life support systems work at maximum capacity. Those children are losing water through their skin to cool their bodies, Beth explained. They produce salt water that evaporates to regulate their internal temperature. It is a cooling system more efficient than most technology. Yila was making distressed chirping sounds. Everything about this place should kill any life that tries to exist here. The gravity, the pressure, the radiation, the temperature extremes, the violent weather. How did any creature evolve to survive such conditions? That is exactly the right question, Jake said with a smile that was becoming familiar to his students. The smile that meant they were about to learn something that would terrify them even more. Earth did not just produce creatures that could survive these conditions, Jake continued. Earth produced creatures that became the most successful species the planet had ever seen by being tougher and more dangerous than everything else. The simulation changed to show Springfield's main street during a normal day. Humans walked along sidewalks, drove vehicles, entered and exited buildings. They all looked calm and peaceful. Every person you see here is descended from millions of generations who survived Earth's challenges, Beth said. Every human alive today comes from ancestors who were tough enough to live through ice ages, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, floods, droughts, plagues, and predators. Jake pointed to a woman carrying a small child. That mother can run for miles while carrying her baby. She can fight off attackers twice her size. She can go days without sleep to protect her child. Her body can produce food for the baby from her own nutrients. He pointed to an elderly man walking with a cane. That grandfather has survived more than 70 years on Earth. His body has fought off thousands of diseases. He has lived through dozens of potentially deadly accidents and injuries. By your standards, he is a warrior who has won countless battles. The simulation zoomed in on a group of human teenagers playing basketball. They jumped high into the air, collided with each other, fell hard on the pavement, and kept playing. Those children are developing the physical and mental toughness they will need as adults, Beth explained. They learn to ignore pain, to push their bodies beyond normal limits, to compete and cooperate under pressure. But they look so normal, protested Morgan. They do not act like dangerous creatures. That is because they are around other humans, Jake said. When humans are surrounded by creatures as tough as themselves, they can afford to be gentle and civilized. But the strength is always there when needed. The simulation changed one more time. Now it showed news footage of humans responding to natural disasters. They ran into burning buildings to save others. They worked for days without rest to help flood victims. They lifted heavy debris to rescue trapped people. This is what humans do when their environment becomes dangerous, Beth said. They do not run away or hide. They run toward the danger to help others. Even when they might die? Asked Zixtal. Especially when they might die, Jake replied. Humans have an instinct to protect others that overrides their self-preservation. They will risk their own lives to save strangers. The simulation ended and the chamber returned to normal. The alien students sat in stunned silence, breathing heavily through their life support systems. Next week we will discuss what happened when humans left Earth, Jake announced. How they adapted to space travel and what they brought with them to other worlds. As the students filed out, they moved more slowly than usual. The simulation had shown them that every human they had ever met was a survivor from the most hostile environment in known space. Professor Martinez, Drakmore said as he reached the door. When humans came to the galactic community, did they tell other species how dangerous they were? Jake thought for a moment. No. We thought it was better to let everyone get used to us first. We did not want to frighten anyone. But now that we know the truth, Drakmore continued, what does this mean for the rest of us? Jake looked at his students. They were all listening, waiting for his answer. It means you have a choice, Jake said finally. You can be our friends or you can be afraid of us, but you cannot pretend anymore that we are just another peaceful species that happened to come from a. Jake looked out at his classroom full of alien students. After 4 weeks of lessons, they looked very different than they had at the beginning. The Vorthak student Zixtal no longer made happy crystal sounds. The Flixian Morgan kept his tentacles wrapped tightly around himself. Even Drakmore, the armored Catherian warrior, sat hunched in his protective shell. More students had joined the class. Word had spread through the university about the human professor's disturbing lessons. Representatives from species across the galaxy had come to hear what Jake was teaching. Today we will talk about the real question you have all been thinking, Jake began. It is not just about Earth being dangerous. It is about what that danger did to us. Dr. Helen Wright entered the classroom. She studied human psychology and behavior. She had agreed to help Jake explain the most important part of his lesson. Humans do not just survive Earth, Helen said as she set up her equipment. We became what we are because of Earth. Every challenge our world gave us, we learned to overcome. She activated a display showing human development over millions of years. The images showed early humans living in caves, then building shelters, then cities, then spacecraft. Predators taught us to hunt in groups and make weapons, Helen continued. Diseases forced us to develop strong immune systems. Natural disasters taught us to plan ahead and work together. Lack of food taught us to be creative and resourceful. Jake stepped forward. But here is what you have not understood yet. We did not just adapt to Earth's dangers. We became Earth's most dangerous creature. The display changed to show various Earth animals. Lions, tigers, bears, sharks, and other predators appeared on screen. Every one of these creatures was stronger, faster, or more dangerous than early humans, Jake explained. But humans won. We became the dominant species on Earth not by being the biggest or strongest, but by being the most deadly. How is that possible? Asked Yila. You showed us that humans have no natural weapons. No claws, no poison, no thick skin or armor. That is exactly right, Helen said. Humans survived by using their intelligence to become more dangerous than creatures with natural weapons. The display showed early humans making spears and arrows. We learned to kill from a distance. No claws could reach us. No thick hide could protect against our weapons. More images appeared. Humans setting traps, using fire, hunting in coordinated groups. We learned to think like our prey, Jake continued. We could predict where animals would go, what they would do, how they would react. We became better predators than any natural predator. Dr. Carl Johnson entered the classroom. He was a historian who specialized in human civilization. Every human you have met, Carl said, every human child, every human elder, comes from millions of generations of survivors. Not just survivors, but winners. He activated another display. Humans did not just live through Earth's challenges. We conquered them. We dominated every environment on our planet. The images showed humans living in deserts, jungles, frozen, wastelands, high mountains, and deep valleys. We learned to live everywhere, Carl continued. Places where no other creature could survive became human homes. We spread across the entire planet and made it ours. But you seem so peaceful, protested Flux the Aryan. Humans in the galactic community work together with other species. You teach and learn and explore. You do not act like conquerors. Jake smiled, and his students recognized that predatory expression they had learned to fear. That is because we choose to be peaceful, Jake said. Humans learned something that most species never learn. We discovered that cooperation is more effective than constant fighting. Helen nodded. Humans developed civilization because we realized that working together made us even more dangerous. Groups of humans could accomplish things that individual humans could never do. The display showed human cities, armies, and space programs. We learned to organize millions of individuals toward common goals, Carl added. We built societies that could harness the abilities of entire populations. We became a species that could reshape worlds. Your species developed civilization on worlds where cooperation was necessary for survival, Helen explained to the alien students. Humans developed civilization on a world where competition meant evolution. We learned to cooperate so we could compete better against everything else. Zixtal was vibrating again, but this time her crystal song sounded different. Not just worried, but terrified. Are you saying that humans conquered your entire world? She asked. Completely, Jake replied. There is no place on Earth where humans cannot go if we choose to. No creature on Earth that we cannot kill if we need to. No environment on Earth that we cannot survive in if we prepare properly. The display changed to show statistics and numbers. Humans control 100% of Earth's land surface, Carl read. We have eliminated species that threatened us. We have modified other species to serve our purposes. We have changed the very climate of our planet to suit our needs. We turned our planet's most dangerous predators into pets, Helen added. We made working partners out of creatures that used to hunt us. We domesticated our environment so completely that most humans today never see a truly wild animal. Morgan's tentacles were writhing in distress. What does this mean for the rest of us now that humans are in space? The three human professors looked at each other. Jake nodded to his colleagues. That depends on whether you want to be our friends or our competitors, Jake said finally. Humans are very good at both cooperation and conquest. We prefer cooperation, but we are prepared for either situation. Carl activated a new display showing human space technology. Ships, weapons, and colonies appeared on screen. Humans brought the same abilities that conquered Earth into space. He said, we can adapt to any environment. We can outthink most problems. We can work together in groups larger than most species can imagine. And we can fight, Helen added quietly. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know warfare better than species that evolved on peaceful worlds. We have weapons and tactics that most civilizations have never needed to develop. The classroom fell completely silent. The only sounds were the various noises of alien life support systems and expressions of fear. Drakmore finally spoke. Professor Martinez, when humans joined the galactic community, did you tell anyone about your capabilities? No, Jake replied. We thought it was better to let everyone get comfortable with us first. We did not want to cause panic. But now that you are telling us, Drakmore continued, what has changed? Jake looked around the classroom at all the frightened faces and life forms. You asked why Earth is classified as a death world, Jake said. The truth is, Earth was always dangerous, but it was not the most dangerous thing on Earth. What was? Whispered Yila. We were, Jake replied simply. Humans are the reason other species classify worlds as deadly. Not because of the environment, but because of what that environment produces. Helen stepped forward. Every human you meet, from the kindest teacher to the smallest child, represents millions of years of evolutionary pressure that would have driven any other species extinct. We are not refugees from a hostile world, Carl added. We are the product of that world. We are what a death world creates when a species not only survives but thrives. The implications sank in slowly. These were not peaceful creatures who had escaped from a dangerous planet. These were the apex predators from the most challenging environment in known space. Professor Martinez, Flux said in a shaking voice, what does this mean for the rest of us in the galaxy now that humans are here? Jake considered the question carefully. Around him, his alien students waited for an answer that would determine how they viewed humanity forever. It means you have a choice, Jake said finally. You can work with us and benefit from human abilities, or you can work against us and discover why Earth was not able to stop us. We are very good at protecting our friends, Helen added. Humans will fight to defend allies with the same intensity we once used to survive on Earth. And we are equally good at defeating our enemies, Carl concluded. The same abilities that made us Earth's dominant species work just as well in space. Drakmore stood up slowly, his massive armored form towering over the other students. Professor Martinez, I have one more question, he said. Are humans planning to conquer the galaxy? Jake smiled again, but this time the expression seemed different. More thoughtful, less predatory. We do not need to conquer the galaxy, Jake replied. We already did. We just did it by making friends instead of enemies. By the time most species realize what we are capable of, we are already their allies, teachers, and partners. The choice was never whether humans would become the dominant species in the galaxy, Helen said. The choice was whether we would do it through cooperation or conquest. We chose cooperation. But the capability for conquest never went away, Carl added. It is still there in every human you meet. We just prefer not to use it. As the class ended, the alien students filed out in complete silence. They moved like creatures who had just learned that their understanding of the universe was completely wrong. Jake, Helen, and Carl packed up their equipment. I think we may have traumatized them, Helen said, watching the last student leave. They asked for the truth. Jay,